This is the review packet for 4-1 to 4-3's quiz. So in 4-1, we're looking at percentages, writing equations in order to solve for something missing, whether it's the percent or one of the numbers involving percents. So let's jump right in. Number 1, 45 is 30% of what number? We're going to write that out as an equation. 45 is equals 30%. Move that 2 spots or divide by 100, and that's 0.30, which you can write as 0.3. Of is times what number is x. So you just write it out. 45 is 30% of some number, x. So to solve that, we are going to divide by 0.3. So 45 divided by 0.3 is 150. Number 2, a digital camera costs $250 after a 15% discount. So here's one we got to be careful. $250 isn't 15% of something, so we can't write an equation with those two right there. So we have to match up a percent to 250. So every one of these problems, when we're talking about discounts and tax, things like that, they have 3 different percents. The 100%, that's what you started with. And then everything's related one way or the other. Either money or percentage was added on or taken off. Discounts are taken off. So 15% was taken off. They could have given you that number and told you you saved whatever, $250 using a 15% discount. Then that $250 would be the 15%. But that is not what they gave you. They told you that the price at the end was $250. So this percentage here is equal to $250. Digital camera cost $250 after a 15% discount. So after you take off 15%, you're left with 85%. What's the original price? What's the 100%? So $250 is 85% of the original cost. We're going to write that as an equation. $250 is 85% of the original cost, which we don't know. So divide by 0.85. 250 divided by 0.85. And you get $294. And you don't get a perfect decimal, so you round it off. We're going 2 spots to deal with money. So instead of 11 cents, the 7 bumps it up to 12. Number 3, now it says to the nearest percent. That's just a rounding thing, so we're going to round this to the nearest percent. That's a whole number percent, so 14%, 16%, whatever it is. So 17 is what percent, so that's x, of 40. So we haven't been given the percent, we're solving for it. When we solve for x, we're going to get a decimal. We have to move that decimal 2 to the right. Like look at the 0.85. Put it back 2 to the right to make 85%. So we're going to divide by 40 and we're going to see what we got. So 17 divided by 40. 42.425, which when we move that decimal is 42.5%. So 0.425. Move that decimal 2 spots. That's 42.5%. But it says to the nearest percent. So no decimal. That 5 is rounding it up. And that's where the answer key got 43%. All right, 8 is what percent of 32? We're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 32 to get it by itself. Get the decimal and move it over. So we get 0.25, move it over 2 spots, and that is 25%. To the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal place. What number is 71% of 311? So no dividing needed here. X is already by itself. Just simplify the side, which just means complete whatever operations you see. So it's just 0.71 times 311. And this one side to the nearest tenth. So we're only going 1 decimal place. The next number is a 1, which won't change it. So it's 220.8. Number 6, 100 is what percent of 16? Again, we're solving for the percent. So when we get that percent, it's going to give us a decimal. We have to move it 2 to the right to put it back. Now, again, we're comparing 100 to 16 before we even do this. A percentage is a piece of the total. If the total is 16 and we're trying to measure 100 against it, 100 is way more than 16. So 16 out of 16 would be 100%. If you double 16, 32 out of 16 is 200% because 32 is more than 16, more than 100%. Well, 100 is way more than 16. So this is going to be a very large percent in terms of hundreds of percents. So when I do 100 divided by 16. I get 6.25. Again, just like if it was 0.71, we move it 2 to the right to get 71%. We're moving this 2 to the right, and this is 625%. Now, percents that big are new to a lot of students when they come to algebra, and they don't even understand that that can happen. They think a percent always has to be less than 100. But we're comparing 100. 100 is what piece of 16? Well, it's more than 16. So for every 16, it's 100%. So we have 625%. All right, moving on. Number 7. A pair of pants is $55. That's the original price. And they are 20% off. What percent do you pay? So forget the 55 for a second. If it's 20% off, that comes off the 100, you're paying 80%. So if they were 55 and now they're 20% off, how much do they cost? So two options. You can take 20% of 55. So what is 20% of $55? When you get that amount, you're going to have to subtract it off, because when you find 20%, that's not the new cost. That's how much is coming off the price. Or you can say, what is 80% of 55? Because 80% is what you're paying. So 20%, take it off, we'll get you the same answer as this. So 0.2 times 55 gets you 11. So x equals $11. That's the 20%. That's what's coming off the price. So 55 minus 11 means they now cost 44. Or you can go straight to 0.8 times 55, and that will get you 44 right there. So the total cost is $44. You just need to understand what the numbers are when you get them. A lot of students will say the cost is $11, and that doesn't make sense. Number 8, Susan goes out to lunch, leaves a 20% tip. The tip is $6. So going back up here, every problem when you're dealing with tips and discounts and stuff like that has 3 percentages. Your 100%, which is the cost of the meal or the original price of an item. And then you're either adding a percent, taking a percent off. So here, we're adding a 20% tip. In total, we're paying 120%. Now I do all that, I don't necessarily line this up every time. So up here, the 250 was with the 85%. That doesn't mean the 6 goes here. To think about it. Is the tip the 100%, which would be the cost of the meal? Is the $6 20%, the tip? Or is $6 the 120%, the total amount of money that you paying for your meal and the tip together? So 6 is the tip. 6 is the 20%. So we need to write an equation that says that. 6 is 20% of the original meal. And then they're going to ask you, they can ask you either for this, and they can say, what was the cost of her meal? Or they can ask you for this, and they can say, how much did she pay all together with the meal and the tip combined? And so we're still solving this equation either way. It's just how you deliver your answer at the end. So we're going to divide by 0.2. 6 divided by 0.2 gets you 30. So here, x equals 30. And again, we need to know what that represents. That's the 100%. That's the cost of the meal. The tip is 20% of this. So they could now ask you for how much did you pay altogether. You would say 36. $30 for the meal, 6 for the tip. But they didn't ask that. They said how much was the meal. So the meal here was $30. So it's still the same equation either way, but you have to give the answer they're looking for. All right, basic one here. 65 is 20% of what number? Divide by 0.2. 65 divided by 0.2, 325. Nice and easy. To the nearest whole number, so rounding it, 37%, 0.37 of 1715 is equals, what number is x? Okay, so we're just simplifying this side, no division necessary. 0.37 times 1715. And it says nearest whole number, so this is rounding up to 635. 10 is what percent of 200? We are dividing by 200 to get x by itself. So 10 divided by 200 is 0.05. And again, that's the decimal version. 37% was 0.37. Got to move it 2 to the right to get it back to 37%. 2 to the right, this is 5%. To the nearest hundredth, that's 2 decimal places. What number is 133%? So be careful, don't put 0.133, big mistake there. 2 spots, that's it, 2 spots, so it's 1.33. Of is times 1111.8. Okay, so multiplying here, 1.33 times 111.8. All right, and it says to the nearest hundredth here, so we're going 2 spots. 6, 9, and the 4 leaves it the same. 5 or higher, you bump it up, but 4 leaves it the same. So it is 1478.69. All right, 13, one of these. So we want to look at our percentages. What is the $15? Which percent? And then write an equation. So it goes out to breakfast. The meal is $15. How much is the meal with a 15% tip? So 100% is what she spent for the meal, which is the 15. She's going to add a 15% tip. And altogether, she's spending 115%. So we can't write an equation with 100%. So what we're going to have to do is find out either what's 15% of this and add it on, or what's 115% of this, and then that's the total cost. So let's just look at what they're asking. How much is the meal with the 15% tip? Now, how much is the 15% tip? That's when you would multiply by 0.15 here. But how much was it all together? So 2 options. Again, you could write the equation with the 15% and say, what is 15% of $15? Find that out, that's the tip, and then add it on yourself. Or you can say, what is 115% of 15? And 115% is the total cost altogether, which is what we're looking for. So I'm going to just do it that way. 1.15 times 15 gives you $17.25. But again, if you did 0.15 times 15, you get $2.25. That's the tip. Add it on to the 15, and you also get $17.25. To the nearest percent, so rounding to a whole number. 200 is what percent of 333? We're dividing here by 333. 200 divided by 333. Move it 2 spots. That's 60 point everything else. They said to the nearest percent though, and that's going to stay 60%. To the nearest whole number. Okay, here's your percentage. Move it 2 spots. 1.13 of is times 211.8 is equals what number? X is by itself, so just multiply. And again, to the nearest whole number. So I get this. All you have to do is look at the next decimal place that you're not using. Not using the 3, which doesn't bump it up, so it stays 239. All right, a little more complicated here on the back. You're not going to see anything like this on the quiz. Everything from the quiz looks like the front. But just to push you a little bit, we've added these in here. And I've eliminated some of them. So 16. The estimated population of the United States is this really big number. Okay, 298 million. The literacy rate, literacy means people who can read, is 99%. So 99% of these people can read. So you could multiply by 0.99 to find 99%, but let's see what they're asking for. By these numbers, approximately how many people in the United States are illiterate, meaning they can't read? So if 99% can read, that means 1% can't, because altogether you have to get your 100%. So we're going to round to the nearest 10,000. So let's go back to this number for a second. Here's your 10,000s. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000. So this is going to be the last number that we keep, and then everything else is going to be a 0 when we round it. So first of all, we're trying to find out how many people are illiterate. That's the 1%. So we need to find 1% of this. You could find 99% of it. That's the amount of people that can read. And then you'd have to subtract it away from that to find the 1%. So let's not add extra work, even though it'll get us the correct answer. Let's just find 1% of this. So what is 1%? Move it 2 spots to the right. That adds a 0.01. 1% of this big number. What is 1% of that? We get this number. I'm not even going to put the decimals because we're rounding this to the nearest 10,000. So here is 1,000 and here's a million. So for 10,000, we're looking at this place right here. That's the last number we're going to use. So we're going to have the 2,900,000, 80,000, And then this next number, if this was 5 or higher, would have bumped this up to a 9. Didn't. And everything else rounds to zeros. Okay, 17. Leading cause of deaths in this year was heart disease. This many people. Approximately 27% of deaths were caused by heart disease. So this is not the total deaths. This is just the heart disease deaths, which accounts for 27%. So this number is 27% of the total number of deaths. Estimate the total number of deaths. So we're looking for the 100%. But this, we're told, is 27%. I keep using those words on purpose. 650,000 is 27% of the total number of deaths. So if I want the total number of deaths, all I have to do is divide by 0.27. Okay, and then in terms of your rounding, let's put this number down. I'm not even going to worry about the decimal because I'm rounding here. Nearest 100,000. So 100,000 is right here. So you're going to keep all the numbers up to that. That number either stays a 4 or goes up to a 5 based on this. The 0 says keep it the same. So it's 2,400,000. Again, no rounding issues on the test. Okay, but good practice. 18. Out of this many early applicants, 21% were admitted. However, out of this many regular admission applicants, only 7% were admitted. How many students were admitted to Harvard? So all we have to do is find out how many were admitted here with early admission. You can send in an early admission application. And then regular admission on time, 7% of those people. So we're just going to add those two together. So we want to find 21% of this. So what is 21% of 4214? And what is 7%, 0.07, 2 to the left, of 18,582. So those are two different numbers there, sorry, and we're going to add them together. So 0.21 times 4214. Now we'll have to see how the book rounded this, but to me you can't round up a person. So 21%, it kind of just depends on how you're doing your statistics. So I'm curious to see how they rounded this, but let's go with 884 because, well, let's go with 885 for a second. And then we can talk about why you would or wouldn't round up here. The other one, 0.07 times 18,582. So if we're following the same logic, we would round this one up as well. So 1301, the 0.7 rounds it up. And it looks like that's what they did. So 885 plus 1301 gives you 2186. And that was their answer. But you could argue that you can't round up a person. If you had 0.7 people, you'd have to round it down. But when you're dealing with percentages, there's a little bit of a gray area there. So in this case, they're just rounding traditionally. So there's your answer. Again, not something we need to really focus on and worry about right now. All right, number 20. According to the annual Tooth Fairy poll, blah, 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 the gift increased from $1.78 in 2005 to $2 in 2006. Find the percent of increase. So we haven't talked a ton about percent of increase. So we're measuring how much it increased, and we're going to give that amount a percentage. So how that works is it's based off what you started with. Because if I had $100 and I gain $2, that's 2%, 2 out of 100. But if I have $1 million and I go up $2, well, that's not a huge increase percentage-wise, right? So we're just looking at a percentage, which tells you based on what you started with, how big of an increase was it? So we're comparing everything to the 1.78 or the $1.78. So first of all, we want to find out how much did it increase. So it increased by 22 cents. What we want to do is want to know that 22, what percent is that of the original? What percent did it increase? So 0.22, and we're not talking about percentage, that's 22 cents. 22 cents is what percent of $1.78? So it started as $1.78, it went up by 22 cents. We want to know what percent is that. So we're going to divide, and oops, Comparing a piece to the total, you always divide. 22 divided by 1.78. And round to the nearest whole percent. So we were given this. First of all, you got to move it 2 spots, so it's 12%, and the 3 says leave it 12%. Okay, the tax rate on food is 2% in Illinois. Find the total cost of 6 loaves of bread that cost $3.19 each. So first of all, there's 6 of them. So 6 times $3.19, it's $19.14. So the total cost before tax is $19.14 for 6 loaves. We're going to add 2% to this. So we can find 2% of this and then add it on. Or we can think about it in terms of percentages. You're going to pay 100%, which is the $19.14. But we're going to add 2%, which means we're paying 102%, which is 1.02. So we want to know what is 102% of 1914. Or you can find what is 2%, and when you get that number, add it to the cost. But I'm going to jump straight to the answer, 1914 times 1.02. And again, we're talking about money, so it's $19.52. The next 2 keeps it there. It doesn't bump it up. All right, moving on to 4.2. So we're going to graph these equations and label them so we know what's what. So x equals 3, you go to your x-axis and you find 3, and we're going to draw a line that always is x equals 3. So the y values can change up and down, but the x values anywhere you go on this line are equal to 3. Y equals -2. Go to the y-axis, find -2. The x values can change left to right, but no matter where I go on this line, the y values are -2. X equals -1. Go to the x-axis, -1. The y values change, but no matter where I go on this line, the x values are -1. And y equals 2.5, go to the y-axis, 2.5 would be right between 2 and 3. And no matter where I go on this line, the y value is still 2.5. The x value goes up, the x value goes down, but the y value remains 2.5. Okay, 14 and 16, give an equation for each one of the lines. And so, yeah, you can kind of choose each one depending on which one you look at first. You're going to have different answers, but your 3 answers should all match this. So I'm going to start with this one because that's what the answer key did. So this line hits x equals 2 and stays on x equals 2. And up here, the y value goes positive, the y value goes negative, but no matter what, that x value is equal to 2. So that's x equals 2. Looking at this one, okay, that's y equals -3, hits the y-axis at -3. X value changes, but the y value remains anywhere on that line, -3. And then it's hard to see, but there's a line here. And notice the x value has changed when I go over here. It's 3. The x value has changed. It's -3, -2, -1. But what hasn't changed? The y didn't become 2 or -2. The y value stays 0 anywhere I go on that. So it's y equals 0. Okay, 17 and 18, we're going to graph them on the number line and then on the coordinate plane. So on a number line, this is just a single point. It's not a greater than statement or a less than statement. It's a single point. So if I put 0 here and -1 here and -2 here, -1.3 is going to be in between here. And it's going to be a filled in circle. It has to be filled in because that is included. It is the only thing. It is the point. And so if I put a 0 here, if you wanted to make it more clear, you can put a 1 and a 2 and a -1 and a -2, but that point is going to be right there at 0. Now you should label it. So this says y equals, so this number line represents y and this number line represents x. But let's put these now on a coordinate plane. This is called your coordinate plane. And so y equals -1.3 is where that always equals -1.3. So go to your y-axis and find -1.3, which is going to be right here, between 1 and 2, similar to here. Think about this like your y-axis. But it's everywhere on this coordinate plane that y equals -1.3. Well, right over here, the x value has changed, but y is still equal to -1.3. Same thing over here. So this line looks like this, and that's not a very straight line, but y equals -1.3. X equals 0. So this one can be confusing. We know anytime it's equal to 0, it's going to be on the axis, but which one is it? So I'm going to start here in the middle. I know it goes through that. So it's either going to go straight up and down or straight side to side. it has to remain x equals 0. If I start going this way, the x value has changed. If I go this way, the x value has changed. If I go up here, the y value has changed, but x is still 0. So this line looks like this, straight up and down. Okay, to the bottom, write an equation for the line that contains these given points. So take a look. Both of these have the same x value. The y values have changed drastically. So we went from, if you think about a graph, from 4 all the way up to 100, but the x value stayed -3. So we had -3, 4, and -3, 100, which means you have a line that goes straight up and down. It's the x that doesn't change, so the x is what we're going to write it with, x equals -3. If you want to make it super easy, you just look, it's x comma y, which one hasn't changed. So when we get to the next one, it's x comma y. The y value has not changed, so this is y equals 4. All right, and then 4.3, we looked at kind of solving some of this stuff and looking at break-even points with the table. All right, so these two people are saving up for a $400 scooter. This person has $125 saved, so I'm going to go ahead and put that right in here. She's starting with $125, and then she has a rate that she's going to increase. Jess only has $50, week 0, so that's what she started with, but is saving at a rate of $75. So we're going to complete the table here. So the first one's going up by 50, so you add 50, and keep adding 50 to hers. And Jess is adding 75, so just keep adding 75. Then we can go answer the question. Who gets to the scooter first? So who gets to 400 first? So however you want to pronounce that name, Davana. She hasn't gotten to 400 yet. Jess has. So to answer the question, Jess will get to the scooter first. Number 2, write the expressions that describe their savings in terms of weeks. So we're going to do Davana and Jess. Davana starts with 125, and she is adding $50 per week. And Jess has $50, and she is adding $75 per week. Okay, what's the break-even point? You take a look. When break-even means when do they have the same amount of money, and that is week 3. If the scooter had only cost $175, would the answer to question 1 change? Meaning, who got the scooter first? And the answer here is yes, and it says explain. Savannah would have got there first. Savannah got to $175 first. Okay, moving on. Comparing two rental companies here. Renting a car. So a mid-sized car in Chicago is $3.79 per day plus 20 cents per mile. Now be careful, don't just throw that $37.99 down here because we've already got 20 miles. This isn't 0, this is 20. So we already have to change this. Best bet is $39.99 plus 18 cents per mile. All right, and then we're going to answer the question after we fill this out. So we've got, where can I put it? 20 cents per mile on this one and 18 cents per mile on this one. And then what we're going to do is find out, okay, if you went 20 miles, it's 20 cents each. We're going to go ahead and multiply that. So it's going to be 0.2 times 20, 0.2 times 40, and the 0.2 again is the 20 cents. So if you want to write it as 0.20, that's fine. Times 60, times 80, times 100, times 120. Now that's not going to be my final answer that I want to put in here because I also have to add the original cost. So plus, I'm going to just, instead of writing $37.99 every time, I'm going to put a C for cost. So 20 cents for 20 miles is going to be $4 plus the cost of $37.99, and that is $41.99 here. Next one, 20 cents times 40 miles is $8 plus $37.99 upfront cost, $45.99. Now, if you notice, this went up 20, and this went up 4. So if we continue to only go up 20, it should only go up 4. So 20 cents times 60 is 12. So notice the amount went from $4 to $8 to $12. So for every 20 miles, it's $4. Goes up 4, 8, 12. Plus $37.99. And that's $49.99. If you look at these costs, 41, 45, 49, it's going up by 4. So since this continues to go up by 20s, I actually can just keep adding 4 to it. So plus 4 would be $53.99. Plus 4 would be $57.99. And plus 4 would be $61.99. Okay, for the other one, now we're multiplying 18 cents times 20. 18 cents times 40, on and on and on. Now we know this is going to be a consistent increase, so let's see what this actually is. 18 cents times 20 miles is $3.60. So it's going to go up $3.60 every single time. So we'll use that information. But this one costs $39.99 to start with. So we're going to spend $3.60 on the miles plus $39.99 on the upfront cost. So total here is going to be $43.59. So for the next one, 18 cents for 40 miles, $7.20, plus the original $39.99, it's $47.19. And if I subtracted those two numbers, I should get $3.60. So $47.19 minus $43.59. Perfect. So what I can do now is just keep adding $3.60 to each one to speed up the process. So $47.19 plus $3.60 is $50.79 plus $3.60, $54.39 plus $3.60, $57.99. That's a 9. And then plus $3.60 one more time, $61.59. All right, now let's answer the question. We completed the table. Which company charges less for 60 miles? So looking at 60 miles. Who charges less? That's Rent With Us. Write the expressions that describe the company's charges. All right, that's pretty easy. So we're going to start with the initial cost. So let's start with Rent With Us. I'm going to call them R equals, it's $37.99 plus 20 cents per mile. And Best Bet is $39.99 plus 18 cents per mile.